In this video, we're going to look at some of the historically best performing stocks with trade entries in March. So we're looking at stocks with at least 25 years of data, and then we look at different trade time frames. This is called seasonality, where we look at how different assets, different stocks perform at different times a year. And we have three that we're going to look at: Lin, Yum, and PXD. So you can see the basic breakdown here of how this works. So for Yum Brands, the last 26 years, the trade period is between March 22nd and April 24th. So opening this trade a little bit later in the month, and it runs for about a month, and it's moved higher in 22 of those 26 years. So if this trade was taken, only 4 times would it have been a losing trade, and you can see the average breakdowns here. So average profit, or the average return for each one of these trades, 7.6%. The biggest profit was just over 50%, the biggest loss, minus 5.5%, and the biggest drawdown, close to 11%. So the difference between drawdown and biggest loss is that that trade is open. When we have a trade open between March 22nd and April 24th, the biggest loss is measuring what we actually would have ended up with. Whereas the biggest drawdown is how much you would have been offside on a trade between these dates over the last 26 years. And that's 11%. So this is the smallest on the list, why I mentioned it first. It also has the smallest average return of the 3 stocks we're going to look at, but tends to be a little bit more stable, at least historically. We'll talk about some things to do with seasonality in just a moment, where we don't necessarily just want to rely on this data because we don't know if history is going to repeat this year. Are we going to have a losing year, and up year? We don't know. So it's historical data. Keep that in mind. It's not necessarily a predictor of what will happen this year. So let's move on to the next one, Pioneer Natural Resources, so ticker symbol PXD. Also, last 26 years has moved higher. This one a little bit different trade rate, March 14th to April 18th. Again, about a month-long trade. Has moved higher in 20 of those 26 years. So 77% win rate. Average profit 10%, biggest profit 30%. You can see the loss, biggest loss 11%, a little bit bigger. Biggest drawdown also bigger than Yum. So this kind of gives you a sense of what you may have to hold through if you just kind of bought these every year. You would see 18% drawdowns, 11% losses, but overall the trades, we would have ended up with a 10% average profit. Again, this does not indicate necessarily what will happen in the future. Let's look at Lin. So over the last 31 years, moved higher between March 6th and May 3rd. Note this is a longer trade time frame, closer to 2 months, and the trade entries near the beginning of March. Of those 26, it's moved higher in 26 of the last 31 years, so 84%, 8.5% average win rate. Not too bad of a biggest loss, just under 8%, but bigger drawdown of closer to 24%. So pretty big drawdown, and I just kind of noted that here, that this one has the biggest drawdown, and then it's kind of in the middle in terms of the other statistics. It's compared to the other 3 stocks. This shows, because we don't necessarily just need to trade these in isolation based on historical data, you could also analyze their charts, look at their fundamentals, give you some other edges potentially for managing your risk in these trades and deciding which one you wanted. That is how they look over the last year. So you have PXD in purple, Lin in the turquoise, and Yum in the red. So Lin moving pretty aggressively to the upside recently, Yum moving pretty aggressively to the upside recently over the last few months, and PXD a little bit choppy here. I'm recording this at the end of February 2024. So over the last few months, it's kind of been chopping sideways, but just getting up to the upper edge of this range. So, if you wanted to look at technical indicators or anything like that, or technical analysis for deciding if you wanted to trade these, again, just some historically interesting data. These stocks have performed very well at this time of year. So check them out if you like, and just remember that, you want to include your own analysis as well, because this is historical data and doesn't necessarily indicate what these stocks will do this year.